it was fascinating to see when they did Amityville Horror, it was based on a novel by Jay Anson. But the second reincarnation of Amityville Horror, based on a true story. It changed.
You mean like in Poltergeist, I can't access the afterlife through my closet in the bedroom? I mean,
well, you can always try. Yeah. I would advise it.
Jeez, I'm not going to get people ascending to heaven through my staircase. It's just no. I guess that would be a stairway to heaven, but we won't go there.
Oh dear. Yeah, hopefully we're not going to get a whole lot of hate mail on that one. Sorry. But,
I did like the movie, but it just anytime any of your children ever bug you for a pool, just show them Poltergeist, and they'll never ask you for a backyard pool again.
Or Jaws. Jaws worked for me. People's perception going into a situation can very well color what they perceive is going on. And as a parapsychologist, you have to be aware of that too. So that's why it's important to know, anthropological things, sociological things, what's their culture represent as paranormal? What does their religion represent, as when it comes to the paranormal? You need to be very much aware of those things when you're going in for a case, because it can very well color their perceptions of what's going on.
Well, do you also ask? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's a series that just wrapped up its first season called Destination Fear, one of the Travel Channel. Hey, we're all paranormal all the time almost. Where Dakota, the lead investigator who used to work with Zach, would be he decided to conduct what he called a psychological experiment to see how they could work through their fear, and they would go to these famous haunted places. I don't think they went to Waverly. They didn't, or Pottstown, but they did go to like Mansfield and places like that. And all I kept thinking is the one thing they're missing is a control. Somebody like me who doesn't jump out of their skin if something, a penny falls on the floor. And I would love to be in some of these locations. But yeah, like you say, they go in there fully expecting to have the pants scared off of them. And sure enough, what a surprise they do.
Yeah, they do. And that's why I find it really humorous when these people are using this equipment and they go into a haunted location, and whenever that equipment triggers, it's got to be a ghost because they're in a haunted location. But if they took that equipment home and had it happen in their own house, they'd be looking for alternative reasons because obviously their house isn't haunted. But that's a perception issue.
Sleeping in a tent in the yard too, That's it.
Well, I mean, is one of the questions that a lot of investigative teams ask people is, how many of these ghost shows on TV do you watch? Do you watch a lot? And are they, if they're going to say, no, I don't watch that sort of stuff on television, then they would have a completely different slant on how to do the investigation.
That's true. And, I would hope an investigation team that's been doing this for a while has a good interviewer that takes the time to do that. Unfortunately, with a lot of investigative teams I've seen around local parts anyway, they don't take the time to do that. They go charging out the equipment, guns blazing. And they spend very little time talking to the client at all. But that is a very poignant question to ask. And there are so many different ways to answer that question, too. So as a interviewer, you have to be listening for the answers and be willing to deviate from the checklist if need be. Like I've had a case before where I've asked, do you drink? Well, not very often. I said, and if somebody wasn't paying attention, they might glaze over and go to the next question. But I said, well, okay, describe very often. Oh, well, I drink every night before I go to bed, just one glass of wine, 1 to 2 glasses of wine every night. That's supposed to be good for you. And I'm like, she had read some story and in a news mag somewhere saying that this was good for heart health to drink wine, but you don't drink
Oh, yeah.
2 glasses of wine every single night.
You're doing lockdown.
Let's hear it for
But that was-
resveratrol. Yeah. Woo.
But when it came down, I dug into that deeper and deeper, and I found out that was the only way she could relax to go to bed at night, because she was alone in the house, and she, things would happen at night, and so she would drink to cope with it. So that's one of the you have to really pay attention to and have a really good checklist to go by, but be willing to deviate and dig deeper on the checklist if you have to.
So as we get into the quarantine and we find people, you have to stay at home, you have to do stuff, they start binge watching the Travel Channel or the poltergeist stuff or whatever, and all of a sudden, all those, because we're starting to get into the warmer season, all of those floor joists start popping, and they start screaming ghost. Or they're so pent up, like we talked about before, with that much energy. And, if my husband cracks his, knuckles one more time, I'm going to scream. Stuff, then, how much of that over a period of down 2 months in some cases, is going to accumulate? And if a psychic would walk into some of these houses right now, would they be bowled over with that much energy, do you think?
They could. I mean, they've already said they've had record amounts of divorce filings because people just are not meant to be in each other's space like that for long periods of time. And relationships are not lasting. They're getting angry with each other on every little thing. They're getting on each other's nerves, especially if they don't have that release valve to be able to leave the house and walk around. Sometimes you don't. It depends where you're at. But, a lot of that pent-up energy could manifest into a PK situation or a poltergeist situation where things are flying off the shelves and the first thing they jump to is ghost, because that's all they know. They're not everybody's familiar with the poltergeist phenomena. So, but and again, that's a perception issue. But I find that sometimes when you binge watching this stuff, it does not take very long.
Sure. For
things to start manifesting.
Yeah. Now here comes the big question then. Once it's starting to manifest and you get that entity, whatever it's called, does it dissipate, or do you have to do something to get it to dissipate?
Well, you have to stop
being fed.
Yeah, and that's sometimes if they can make that connection by themselves and stop watching it should dissipate on its own, because it's feeding off of that interest, that magnetized interest in the paranormal. And I've had to have that discussion with people in my classes before when they come in and they're taking my apparition cases or my apparition classes or my intro to parapsychology classes, that they're opening the door to whatever may happen, because by your interest alone, you're opening that door and things may start to happen. Or you may just be more apt to realize things are happening.
So let me ask you then, because, if you practice magic or you do any of that sort of thing and it all becomes intent, exactly how much of this is sort of like almost a ritual of a sort where, I'm stuck in this house, I can't stand it, this person is the cause of it, and all this stuff is going in. So you have almost a directed hex towards certain people. Mm-hmm. Does that sound?
Oh, that very well could happen. Yeah. That's what I was talking to Brian about. I was kind of joking with him about it. It's like I can just hear the scenario right now between the boyfriend and the girlfriend. I can't believe you threw that plate at me after that argument. I didn't throw it at me. Well, who else could it have been? Well, when you start demeaning me like that at a regular basis, it brings out my feelings of insecurity that I had with my over-domineering father, and it happens or comes out as PK outburst. And he's like, what? And she's like, what? Never mind. But that very well could be what happens, is that relationships get tried and triggers can be pulled, and even subconsciously. You may not be aware of it. Sometimes it takes an external person viewing the situation through fresh eyes to realize what's going on. But yeah, it can very well happen.
It could also flavor the entity to a certain degree, could it not? I mean, if you're having all these issues at home and you start binge watching the Travel Channel, and all of a sudden you start labeling everything that's happening around you as demonic, can it become demonic?
I don't know if you can create a demon out of your own thoughts. I mean, you can definitely perceive it.
You can make it nasty.
Yeah. I mean, if you're shedding off negative emotions and feeding this thing with that, it can very well appear demonic. But demonic is a different thing.
Sure. Yeah.
But
I use the term demonic with air quotes here.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But I mean, if you're watching a lot of these television shows, they throw around that word loosely all the time.
Yeah.
And even when I talked to Amy Allen a couple of years ago, when I talked to her about using the D word, when she does Dead Files, and she just kind of rolled her eyes at me, and I said, so what does that mean? And she's just like, the producers make me use that word.
Yeah.
And he says, it's the only thing people can associate with on the mainstream level. So there's so many different manifestations these things can be, but that's what the producers seem to think gets people's juices flowing.
The D word sells.
The D word sells. So, but yeah, people could very well assume something is demonic based on their perception.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely true. Lots of things. And we were talking before this show went on, and I read it in Variety that there is a Bolivian orchestra that's stuck in a German castle, and it's been stuck there for 73 days. And it's a haunted castle.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking, here you are.
I get it.
Not only stuck in a foreign country, but you're stuck in a haunted castle. It's the Rheinsberg Palace,
right
outside of Berlin, and not only you're stuck in the castle, which is haunted, but you can't go outside because there's packs of wolves out there. So all of a sudden now you have the perfect horror trip, and I'm thinking what the mindset is, and I hearken back to Jeff, help me. What's the name of that movie?
Right.
It's where they take these guys to a haunted house as a psychological test.
Haunting of Hill House? Or
Hill
13
House,
13 Ghosts.
Well, Hill House. I'm Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where
I think the experiment was more. Oh, that's right. The remake was more experiment.
Yeah,
that's all. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of think that way is when you get these people and you automatically set up an event that's almost a trigger. And then all of a sudden you realize, hey, we're stuck here. The house is haunted. What's going to happen, sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. If you don't have the coping mechanism to deal with such things, you're in really, really big trouble. And of course, if you're the one setting up the triggers, you're the fall guy person for that. Yeah, that's evil. That's just mean to set somebody up like that. I mean, obviously, Hill House is meant to be like that. But I remember being when I docented out at Gettysburg, and I was in charge of the house we were at. We were having it just went right out the window. Reenactment. So I was the one on premises there, watching after all these reenactors outside the house. Well, at night I locked the door, and I go to bed in the house by myself. I had all sorts of things happen in that house, and I couldn't leave. I was responsible for all these people. I couldn't leave. So I had to stand up to the things that were there and basically make them back off, but not everybody has those skills. So I was lucky in that sense that I did, but I did think as I was going to bed, I was like, what if these people didn't? Yeah, what if we had people staying here at the house? And I guess I had the director tell me before that he's come and taken people out of the house at night because it's gotten that active.